Hey, what is going on, guys? Today on the channel we're going to be taking a look at my 2011 MacBook Pro, and we're going to be seeing what it's like to use this computer in 2023. So we're almost approaching the 10-year-old mark with this device. So let's go ahead and talk about this thing and see what it's like to use today. So this computer right here is actually my own personal MacBook Pro. And this is a very special device to me because this was my first ever Apple laptop. So I got this for Christmas in 2011 and I was pretty young back then. And yes, I did literally cry when I opened this thing up because I was not expecting that one bit. And it was something that I just wanted. So yeah, finally got my MacBook Pro, and it served me well for those many years until I got my 2018 MacBook Air, which is what you see in a lot of the videos today. So me and this computer have a lot of history together. I have a lot of thoughts about it, and yeah. So a few things I actually did to this computer, I'll go ahead and tell you right off the bat. First things first, it came with 4 gigabytes of RAM. I actually ordered the 8 gigabyte sticks off of Amazon and put that in. This, of course, is back when you could actually open the computer up yourself and service it or upgrade it. So I did upgrade it from 4 to 8 gigs of RAM, so that helped a whole lot. And then probably back in, I would say maybe 2017, 2018, I can't remember exactly what year it is, but I had to end up replacing the battery because the battery had finally just worn out on this computer. But ever since replacing the battery, and it also got that off Amazon, by the way, it has been flawless ever since. So typically, batteries degrade over time. I'm not blaming that battery going bad on the computer whatsoever. That's just something that happens to devices that are that old. So yeah, batteries are replaced and the RAM's been upgraded, but other than that, this computer is, I guess you could say, all original other than those two things. So let's talk about the design of this MacBook Pro 13-inch. So this, of course, is back in the day where we had the very beautiful unibody designed MacBook Pros. You have this nice aluminum material that's used throughout the whole machine. Of course, it is not a very thick laptop. Even being back in the day, it wasn't necessarily a thick device, but it is a pretty hefty and premium feeling device. It's definitely not as lightweight as today's MacBook Pros are, but that's okay. It is still a nice device. Of course, we also have the really awesome glowing Apple logo that is kind of the signature for Apple laptops, although we don't have those anymore today, which is super sad, but it is nice that we get to see the glowing Apple logo here on this MacBook. Other than that, for the exterior, I mean, it's all kind of pretty much the same stuff going on that we kind of see today, except there's a lot more ports. So if you look on the left-hand side of the computer, you're going to see quite a few ports going on here. So the first one, of course, up top is your charging port. And then we have our different Ethernet cables and FireWire even right there. You do have Thunderbolt even in 2011. So there's a Thunderbolt port. Also can be used as a mini display port. And then you have 2 USB ports, SD card slot, and a headphone jack. Now, of course, Apple got rid of ports and brought them back on the new MacBooks because, hey, everybody needs a bunch of those ports. On the front down here at the bottom, of course, we have a little status light so you can see if your computer is asleep or not. That's kind of another signature Apple thing. And this one also had a DVD drive, which is pretty handy as well. When you open the computer up, you're greeted with a nice 13-inch screen. Pretty good size. I think 13-inch is fine for most people out there. You're also going to see a very good keyboard. This is one of the best Apple keyboards out there, and I still, to this day, prefer it over my 2018 MacBook Air, which is like typing on something completely flat. So yeah, super awesome keyboard, and then you have just a great trackpad like you do on all Apple laptops. Let's talk a little bit about the screen. So the display is actually 13.3 inches instead of 13, but the screen itself, I believe, is the 13 inch, and then the kind of border is actually where you get that extra 0.3. So it is a 1280 by 800 resolution, and it looks pretty good. It's not obviously like a Retina display. You can clearly, when you're looking at a modern computer, you can definitely tell the difference. You look a little closer on this one, you can of course see the pixels on the display, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. The graphics in this computer are Intel HD Graphics 3000 with a whopping 512 megabytes of video memory. Yeah, not that great, but it's fine probably. You do also see no speaker grills on this one. However, the speakers are actually under the keyboard, so that's where you'll get your sound from. Now, believe it or not, Apple actually claims that this has a subwoofer, so it's stereo speakers with a subwoofer. You have an omnidirectional microphone and all that good stuff. Sound quality is okay. It's not the best, of course. I'd still rather use headphones, but when you compare it to devices today, it is kind of lacking in the sound department. Now, currently, the latest version of macOS that you can run on this machine is actually High Sierra, and the latest version of that is 10.13.6. Now, High Sierra, of course, hasn't been getting any feature updates for quite some time, but thankfully, Apple continued to update the security portion of it all the way until the end of 2020. So it's only been about 2, maybe 3 years now since Apple has done a security update. But I have a feeling that they've kind of got everything worked out in High Sierra to this. So you're not going to have any future security updates, which can be concerning, but you're going to have the latest up to this point. This computer actually shipped with macOS 10 Lion, which is pretty crazy to think about. I mean, that was so long ago, and we were able to go from Lion all the way to High Sierra, which is pretty cool, honestly. I have done some videos with macOS 10 Lion, so kind of a throwback there, and it was really nice to see how things were. However, when you're actually using High Sierra, you're going to notice that a lot of the applications, even some of the icons, look like what we still have here in Ventura today. So really, you're not kind of that far off on software. A lot of the apps like Safari, for example, I mean, you're still going to get a pretty up-to-date latest version of Safari, which is going to be able to handle most websites and things like that. You can also download most apps from the App Store still, although you're going to run into some problems here and there. I know one thing on VirtualBox, for example, is it is still the latest version. So you just kind of got to watch out for those apps that may not work. You might have to use slightly older applications, maybe a slightly older version of Office or something like that. But for me, all the apps that I need and just kind of mess around with, they work just fine. And you'll even find that some apps are still being updated even though we're on High Sierra. So for example, VirtualBox, you can run the latest version of VirtualBox 7 just fine on this computer, which is pretty cool. Speaking of VirtualBox, let's talk a little bit about performance of this device. So this particular one here is actually the base model. So it comes with a 2.4 gigahertz Core i5, and of course I upgraded the RAM to 8 gigabytes. So the performance of this thing is still really, really good. And I would argue that it's kind of better than my 2018 MacBook Air. But my MacBook Air also has a smaller, less powerful processor. But this computer right here is still fantastic. It runs VirtualBox programs flawlessly. You can run everything pretty smoothly. Different Apple apps have smooth transitions. It feels quick and snappy when you're kind of flying through different things or opening different windows and things like that. As far as like exporting videos and stuff, I mean, it's going to be fine. You might run into some hiccups here and there, but overall, I mean, the performance of this thing, even today, is still really, really good. I actually do a lot of Photoshop stuff on this computer today, and VirtualBox, and just all sorts of different things. So it is still serving me well today. Battery life is another thing. It is really not an issue. I mean, you can probably get maybe, I don't know, 2 hours or so on a full charge. I haven't really taken it off the charger much lately. But when I was at school briefly with this device before I got my next MacBook, it actually done really, really well. It would last through your different classes and things, no problem, without having to take your charger with you. So that was now the only issues I have with this computer that kind of started, I don't think they started when I necessarily got it, but they kind of progressed over time. And I think the issue is the computer needs to be opened up and it needs to be cleaned. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But I've noticed that the fan will like to activate pretty frequently, even when you're doing something that is not necessarily that intensive. And if anybody remembers these old MacBooks, the fan just is so loud. It's so obnoxious. It sounds like it's about to take off. I mean, it's pretty crazy. So it is surprising that the fan activates. I mean, sometimes when you're just browsing in like Safari, for example, the fan will activate. And even as we're kind of sitting here right now, you can hear it just barely humming away, but you can also hear the traditional hard drive making some noises as well. But yeah, the fan kind of heating up for no reason is kind of surprising. Another thing is heat. So the bottom of this thing can get pretty hot if you're doing something pretty intensive. Although that isn't really that big of an issue for me. The fan thing though is kind of crazy. Who knows, maybe I'll open this thing up soon and kind of just clean out everything on the inside. I have a feeling that that's why the fan keeps activating so much. So final verdict here is, should you be using a 2011 MacBook Pro in 2023? Well, here's the thing. The only thing I would be concerned about is the lack of software support. Not only with the occasional applications that you're not going to be able to run because they're no longer being updated to support High Sierra, but also we need to talk about that High Sierra is no longer receiving security updates. So if some sort of vulnerability is discovered in High Sierra, Apple is not going to fix it. So that can kind of leave you out there being exposed, but the chances of them finding more issues with this are kind of unlikely, considering the fact that most people have already moved on from High Sierra. So in theory, there's kind of nothing to worry about, but there's also just a little bit to worry about. But really, if you were just looking for a computer that you can use to do simple tasks, or maybe you just need a couple of applications to do things that you know will work with High Sierra, I really don't see anything wrong with using this computer in 2023. I mean, like I said, to this day, I still use it for VirtualBox, Photoshop, and just different things like that. I also use it for occasionally video editing, because it's kind of interesting to see how it compares to a more modern MacBook. So yeah, I still use this thing today. I use it for making videos with and all that good stuff. And yeah, I think it's still a pretty solid little device here in 2023. Now, as the years go on, I'm probably not going to be able to use this thing anymore. They're going to finally just give up updating applications and stuff that I use. But for the time being, I'm really enjoying this thing. It's nice to get it out of storage and kind of use it again and mess around, and it's a really good computer for me to mess around with, you know, installing other software, or maybe trying some things out, like, you know, installing different things, or going into menus and different stuff, or showing different videos like how to erase a MacBook. Well, I don't want to erase my main MacBook, Or how to install something with Boot Camp. Well, I don't want to install it with Boot Camp on my main one. So it's a good kind of testing computer for me nowadays. But yeah, guys, there's still a lot of people that use unibody MacBooks. I'm pretty sure Ventura supports some older like 15-inch MacBook Pros and stuff. So yeah, it's still a great device here. It's very enjoyable to use as long as your programs work on it. You should be fine, and just be careful with security things. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you had a MacBook of this style at some point in your life. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching as always, and I will catch you all in the next video.